So growing up, in Los Angeles, California, I had a pretty quiet childhood. I grew up in a Catholic school, pretty sheltered. My parents divorced when I was younger, but it was nice because they kind of worked together, and I spent a week on and off seeing my parents, and my grandmother and grandfather raised me a lot. I had a younger sister and adopted brother, and it was different being the middle child, or excuse me, the older child, but kind of like I felt like the middle child because I just wasn't up to par with their intelligence level. My sister and brother are just way smarter than me. My brother ended up going to the University of Michigan. He got the Bill Gates scholarship, got a Rose Bowl ring. Now he's doing commercial real estate, making a bunch of money in California. And my sister, who's going to college now, is going to be a doctor and have her doctorate. And so I just wasn't very good in school. I went to like a semester of community college, and I figured, it just wasn't for me. And I kind of wanted to follow my grandfather's footsteps. And I always kind of had aspirations to serve. So I went down to the local Marine Corps recruiting station, but just really didn't feel like it was for me. I just wanted to do 5 years and then get out and then join the LAPD, come back to California, but just didn't really pan out for me that way. I really didn't know much about the military. I didn't know what I'd be good at. I really didn't really understand all the different jobs that they had to offer. I took the ASVAB, but I really didn't take it serious. My recruiter really didn't do a very good job at kind of explaining to me the seriousness of the scores and what all was really out there. But I kind of had my mindset on law enforcement. I think I was like any other 17, 18-year-old douchebag who wanted to, join the military, do 5 years, get out and go work some type of local law enforcement. And like I said, I wanted to go back and work LAPD. So I was just kind of more doing it for the education, some of the benefits, seeing the world, just doing a small part of it, taking that with me to go back and work local law enforcement. But as I served and time went on, plans just changed, and this ended up being something I enjoyed doing, and being around a bunch of individuals who had like-minded attitudes such as myself, and I decided to stay in. So I'd gotten to Fort Monroe, Missouri, I believe like February or March of 2008. And for the first 3 weeks, the drill sergeants were evaluating the entire company as a whole. I think like 200 of us privates. And pretty much we all went through red phase the same. And this was prior to the surge that President Obama, we didn't know at the time, but he was going to call upon for the surge. And because of that, they needed to get a lot of soldiers to the duty stations that were, rapid deploying duty stations faster. And there was a program that they were building up here at Fort Leonard Wood called AMPS, Advanced Military Police, I think system or school. And essentially 12 of us in the entire company were selected. And really, they didn't have much to go off of. It was off, based on our PT score and the drill sergeant's judgment. But 12 of us got selected to be a part of this program, and they attached us 12 to one drill sergeant. And this one drill sergeant, woke us up from our company every day and took us to every training event. And essentially, we shadowed her, and we reported directly to her. And essentially, we would front load every training event all through basic training and AIT. So in doing this, we actually graduated about a month and a half sooner than my peers who I had started with, so that we could get to our follow-on duty station, which was, for me, Fort Carson. When I got to Fort Carson, I'd gotten to a company, the 984th MP company, who had just gotten back from Iraq, and they were filled with combat veterans, who had just, gotten back from this tour, and the ones that hadn't already PCS'd or ETS'd and were kind of sitting around the company kind of took us under the wing. There was initiations, there was trying to build that bond as a team. The Army was just different back then, but it was all welcomed. I enjoyed it. I tried to soak in as much as I could from these guys, and I asked every question. And I think that was one thing that I carried with me, was their willingness to talk about their deployments, their successes and failures. And that's how I kind of carried myself going forward after all my experiences. So after my first 5 or 6 months at my first duty station, I was in second platoon of the 984th MP company, and I had a platoon sergeant who I think I just kind of like bumped into one day, and there happened to be an open spot that was going to be attending for an EMT school on post, and most major installations, Fort Hood, Bragg, Carson, Campbell, all had like an EMT school that was taught by civilian instructors. And, I didn't know this at the time, but years later I was told, because Afghanistan's, built as a non-contiguous battlefield, medics are being stretched very thin, and EMT was good enough for them. And again, I didn't know this at the time. My platoon sergeant just pretty much asked me, like, do you want to go to the school? I didn't know what EMT was. I had no medical history or background, but it was a month and a half away from the company, so I wanted to take it. And it was the most mentally demanding school I'd ever attended. It was 15 chapters a week, quiz every day, test every other day. Weekends we worked in the local EMT emergency rooms or ride-alongs with the paramedics. But it was very rewarding just knowing I had that kind of skill set under my belt. And for the next about maybe 8 or 9 months, we were planning on going to Iraq. We had orders to go to Iraq in August of 2009. And the day I got promoted to PFC was February 2009. So this is, 7 months before I'm supposed to deploy. And the day I get pinned private first class, my commander brought the whole company in and said that our orders to Iraq had gotten canceled and that we were going to Afghanistan as part of a surge in 40 days. And everything ceased, everything stopped, and we had to gear up to go to the field for, I think it was like maybe two and a half weeks straight, to kind of prep our minds and body for the battlefields of Afghanistan, which were completely different what we were training for in Iraq. I had been training up with 3rd Squad for pretty much my entire time in the platoon. We went and trained urban during the day, and at night we used the mountains of Fort Carson to our advantage, because we didn't know what part of Afghanistan we were going to, whether that was down south in the desert, or that was going to be in the mountains and guerrilla warfare type fighting. And so we were kind of preparing for both. I think once we got told that our orders to Iraq had gotten canceled, it was a shock for everybody, because we had been preparing for that, at least mentally. And I know, like, for the officers, all of our lieutenant platoon leaders and stuff like that, they went out and they were finding books of our predecessors. They were trying to learn from mistakes of, previous units and trying to kind of study the lay of the land, but really didn't know where we were going in the country. And as far as our NCOs, I think if I had to guess, out of like 180 people that our company probably had, maybe less than a dozen, maybe a half a dozen had actually been to Afghanistan. The rest of our combat veterans were all from the Iraq War. And so it was hard to want to lean on anybody as far as the experience of our combat leaders. And I know as a soldier, we were leaning heavily on those combat leaders. If you didn't have a team leader or squad leader that was a combat proven veteran, you were kind of scared, especially if, for us who had never, been to Iraq or Afghanistan. But, a lot of it just came from, again, just studying, watching videos, trying to learn the history of Afghanistan itself. During the first week, once we got into Afghanistan, we really didn't do much. It was a lot of briefings. They were teaching us the new trucks, which then were the MRAPs. They were phasing out the Humvees. And they were teaching us about the mines, because it was one of the, if not the most heavily mined place in the world. And we just did a lot of these briefings and sat around these tents for, I remember, hours upon hours. And there was a lot of unknown as far as where we were going to end up. Our command still, I don't know if they did know, and if they did, they didn't tell us where we were going to be going in the country. And so we really didn't know what terrain we were going to fight in. And it wasn't until maybe week 2 we got told, tonight's night, you're getting on the bird and you're going to be going to your final destination, which again, they still didn't tell us for whatever reason. And I remember being on the flight line on Bagram that night, and there were 2 Chinooks waiting for our platoon to get on. And all I did know from what I did over here, the platoon leadership talking about, was our platoon had the most combat veterans. Although that was a part of it, we had the best cohesiveness and teamwork. We just kind of meshed together. Even today, it was probably just the cleanest form and purest form of leadership and teamwork I've ever seen. And so we just happened to be the right group, and I just overheard that we were going to go to a location that was dangerous, and that was all I was really told. And when I got on the back of the Chinook, I happened to sit next to the crew chief. And as the bird was getting ready to take off, I asked the crew chief if he knew where, he was taking us. And all he told me was, he kind of looked shocked that I didn't know where we were going. But he told me that where we were going, a bunch of Navy SEALs had died, which at the time I didn't know, but that was, the Lone Survivor movie. It was depicted in that movie. And that was the same area of the Korengal, Restrepo, all these major battles that had been fought. And I remember the birds landing at night. They landed at Fob Blessing, just outside the Korengal in the Pesh River Valley. And our platoon got kicked off and the birds took off. And I remember just standing there on the bottom of this little rock pile. And I didn't know what to be scared of because I couldn't see anything. It was a poor moonlit night. And they had a bunch of chem lights on the ground. And they told us, follow the chem lights to your room. We'll give you more information in the morning. And so I didn't know what to be scared of because I had no other senses to see anything. And it wasn't until the next morning we woke up at first daylight and 3 of us opened up the back door to the hooch that we happened to be staying in. And as soon as we opened the door, a jet, I can't remember what kind of jet aircraft it was, flew right over, was popping flares for a unit that was in contact at Cotton, Michigan to the south. And my eyes are adjusting to the brightness. And as I looked around for the first time to see our home, I just saw 4 sides of mountains covering every angle above us, and everything around us was an incline, and we were at the bottom of this fishbowl. And that's when the fear started to kick in as to, how are we going to fight the enemy? Like, how are we going to fight in these conditions? We had everything against us at that point, and I just didn't really, it was hard for me to grasp, especially at that age, what type of experiences we were going to have.